Welcome to the Flex Forward podcast, where grit meets growth. With your host, Nick Espanet, bringing you stories of resilience, reinvention, and the real climb to success.
All right, everyone, welcome to the Flex Forward podcast. Today, we're joined by Marc Nathan. Marc is a connector and involved in tech and startups. I'm going to let him give you a little more detail on that. But Marc, welcome to the Flex Forward podcast. We're glad to have you. Can you share with our listeners a little bit about what you do, just in a snapshot?
Well, sure. Nick, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. So what I do is in the category of business development. My actual title is Senior Director of Market Development. Internally, we call this a market connector role, which I really like. But ultimately, business development, in my mind, is building a connection, building a relationship with people and the community that favors the brand I'm with. And this brand that I'm with today happens to be a fairly significant law firm called Michael Best. And I do legal services and help those companies find money and find capital. So it works out very well to be in the networking space.
Nice, good stuff. So, there's probably a lot of competition out there in your realm. What is something that you feel sets you apart from others that are doing something similar?
So you're exactly right. Just like there's a lot of realtors out there, there's certainly a lot of attorneys out there. Just the same as there are a lot of accountants and real estate brokers and even any kind of work that has a lot of people doing a service-based business. So in order to differentiate, the only way to really do that is exactly that, through service, through the personal relationships and the support that you can give somebody outside of the transaction they're hiring you for.
Nice, and communication. So is there anything in this realm, or is it really anything in life that you find that comes easy to you that may be more challenging for others?
Yes, and I have a very specific one. I know it sounds silly, but I'm going to say it anyway. I discovered I had not exactly a superpower, I'd call it an okay power. And the okay power is I realized early on that a lot of people say, oh, I forgot your name and I missed your name. I decided I was going to flex the muscle and get good at remembering names. And I did that in high school and college. And so I don't have a photographic memory by any means. I don't even remember what I had for breakfast today. But I do find it very, very useful as a skill in the networking world, simply to remember people's names. And the one lesson I learned, there's nothing more beautiful in somebody's ears than their name or the names of their children.
Oh, yeah.
And that's an old networking trick, but ultimately remembering names is the absolute biggest superpower you could ever have.
And that's awesome. That is a skill I need to work on. And I've, even before I was in the syndication world, is just remembering names. And if I'm diligent with it, it sticks. I've gone through the thing like you connect their Mark Park,
Sure.
or you do something that like an association, and it sticks.
All those mimetic tools. That's right.
Yeah. So it's just you're right. People love hearing their name.
One trick I learned. They do. And the one trick I learned, if you forget somebody's name, it's not rude, weird, or awkward to ask. I forgot your name. Remind me. I just did this to somebody I've probably met 10 times and I didn't feel bad about it. And she was happy about it. But ultimately, I'm not going to forget again. But it's one of those things that people really do. And that's universal. I don't care if you're young, old, rich, or poor. That is, to me, the gist of really the beginnings of networking.
Yes. No. That's got to be networking 1.0.
Yeah, 0
on there is knowing the names. So this,
that's right.
we think we just kind of went over this. If someone wants to get better at something, one of our listeners, and say memorizing names, do you have any tips or tricks, or do you just kind of white knuckle it, or did you use some type of system?
Oh, my system was exactly that. I white knuckled it.
Yeah.
The honest truth is that what worked for me was just a couple of tricks you can read in any networking book. It's not even in the chapters, it's in the preface. The way to do it is when you meet somebody, you shake their hand, you look them in the eye and say, and I do this trick a lot, pronounce your name for me. Because if it's Bob or Phil or Jimmy, that's not that difficult. But if it's something just as slightly different than, let's say, run of the road, they say their name, you hear it, and you repeat it back to them. Ask them to pronounce, not what their name is, how to pronounce their name, because that's a little bit different. And then you repeat it back to them, and then hopefully about 2 or 3 minutes later, you have a reason to say their name again in the conversation. And if you say their name 3 times in the course of 3 to 5 minutes, there's a very good chance you'll remember it. And so that's one of the tricks that I try to do.
Much higher. Awesome. Good stuff. So what is, in your career, what is one of the biggest challenges you've had to overcome?
I don't know if I'd call it a career. I'll call it a path. But ultimately, I think the challenge I've had to overcome on a personal level, and I don't think I've ever talked about this before, is when you're a market connector, business developer, salesy kind of guy like me, who's, obviously out there talking to people all day long, my biggest fear and my biggest challenge is making sure I don't come across as a flake. And that really is the most valuable thing you do in any kind of business. Trust is the key to everything you do. So I make it a really, really, really incredibly important thing for me to follow through on my word. And sometimes that's difficult because I have a tendency to say yes a lot when I should say no. So good. Personal challenge is not following through and letting the plates that we're all spinning fall on the floor. But on a professional level, it really is, it's actually the second side of that coin. It's the flip side of that coin. It's how I want the world to perceive me and my business and what I do. It's a challenge for all of us. How are we perceiving the world is something we can't control. We can only control what we do.
Sure.
And you said it earlier, and actually this is a good point. I'd like to discuss it. So I started my career back in Houston when we were one of the only groups of people that were even thinking about technology, because back then Houston was oil and gas or maybe medical, but tech was just not the thing that people did. I like to joke, and it's still true to this day, that Texans will invest in the ground for oil and gas, on the ground for real estate, but never in the cloud. And I've been doing my best to change that for the last 25 years. But ultimately, I came to realize that when you're in a small niche, you have to have a big voice because nobody else is doing it. Nobody else is backing you. You have to understand what you're doing. So when I came up through the tech world, I was actually a very small voice because everybody was in tech. When I moved to Austin, I realized it was an entirely different market that I was not really seeing, but was definitely bubbling to the surface. And it was called consumer packaged goods. So when you grew up in software and you're moving pixels around and you're worrying about VCs and you're worrying about adoption rates, you have a very different mindset when you're talking to consumers who are making packaging and figuring out if glass bottles are going to break in a box. It's a very different mindset, but the companies all have the same problems, including legal problems. So therefore, that was a very, very highly sought after target for us. And that's a very long way of me saying I pivoted my career not to switch from tech, but to add an entirely other category onto it. The same way, you were a physical therapist a lot longer before you were an investor, and now you're both.
Yeah. And
the real question I have for you is not how you perceive the world, but how do you think the world perceives you? You're a multi-hyphenate. What's your first hyphen?
Right now, syndicator or opera. Even within that, within the investor world, we also we operate our own property. So we're capital raisers, we're syndicators, we're owners, operators. So all these different hats, and I know as you grow, you have to start giving up some of those things, giving up control, because if you're going to get bigger, you can't do it all over and over and over. So that's I'll have to ponder that.
And that's my question. So, well, you answered the question, and I'll tell you how I know. You didn't mention physical therapy once in that answer.
Correct. Yeah, I haven't seen a patient in coming up on 5 years, I don't think.
So that's my point. You and I've done the same thing, and that's why I'm so curious about how the mindset was and how you transitioned. But you made a conscious effort to get into something new, and you shed that skin like a caterpillar turning into a butterfly.
Yeah, no, very true. I hadn't thought about it, but it's transitioning out.
When was the last time you went to a trade show? When was the last time you went to a trade show, read a newsletter, read a book, read an article about your old career? It's been a while, hasn't it?
5 years, 4.5, 5 years.
Yeah. So you've proven my point. People can change, and the way people perceive you can change. And so building that personal brand should not be about the identity of your job. It should be the identity of the people that you connect with and the people that you know.
Oh, good stuff. Thank that. Yeah. Say you learn from both sides. Awesome.
Absolutely. So Mark, your network, I'm sorry to interrupt, but your network never dies, but you do have to work it for certain things.
Sure. And maybe transition it over into another little realm a little bit as you move over. Awesome stuff. So it sounds like things are going well for you and in your business. it's a lot of people start to have more success. They start thinking of maybe potentially different ways they can create passive income, either to supplement their current or maybe eventually replace their active income. Do you have any thoughts on passive income?
My favorite kind of income. Yes.
Mailbox
I
money,
do have
right?
a lot of thoughts on passive income. Exactly. And the only problem with passive income, and let's face it, it's never really passive. It's passive-ish, but it's never passive. If you want to do it well and want to do it right, I mean, we talk about all the types of what we're now calling, a few years ago, we called it search funds. Now we're calling them ETA, entrepreneurship through acquisition. And that's being led by a handful of people here in Texas at a national level, where people are buying things like pool cleaners and vending machine routes and what we call sweaty startups or blue collar startups.
Mm-hmm.
That's a really big movement right now, and I'm really impressed with that. And it's a movement not for people switching careers, but adding to their careers. People with steady corporate income that are very concerned about having their steady corporate income their only source of income. So they want to basically hedge the bet against, what we're dealing with in the economy. So I'm seeing people buying things like franchises of driveway pavement companies, yep, and a lot of restaurants, a lot of bars, a lot of really new concepts as well.
I even hear of people buying a plumbing company, a small plumbing, exactly, or a HVAC company that
HVAC, all the trades, every trade that needs a certification is in demand right now. And not anybody in the United States who's trying to get their HVAC repaired during the summer, especially here down south, knows that there's no amount of money you wouldn't pay to get it fixed. And we don't have anywhere near the amount of trained technicians that are out there for the demand. And that goes all the way down the line to garage doors and, lights for Christmas and you name it. But there's a lot of people pushing that right now, and I'm a very big fan.
Yeah, good stuff. So as we're wrapping up the interview, do you have any exciting initiatives or plans in the next year, 6 to 12 months?
Yes, I do. I told you that I'm focused on my job and I love my job and it's great. And the job allows me to host a lot of events. So I've got a couple of what I would consider to be relatively big events coming up. I'm hosting one for the community in Bentonville, Arkansas, which is the home of Walmart and Tyson's Foods. A lot of people don't know this, and I learned this recently, so it's a surprise to me, and I hope it's a surprise to your audience. But Bentonville, Arkansas, in a tiny corner of Northwest Arkansas, which is a tiny corner of basically nowhere, has 1,800 corporate headquarters of consumer packaged goods and retail brands. They have so many people and so many executives that the town looks like a resort. It's gorgeous, it's beautiful, and they have so much activity there locally that they're now doing programming that is in-house. So I'm helping doing some programming for them coming up next month, and then I'm doing another major program in Austin right before the F1 race series, also for investors and consumer packaged goods brands, called the Consumer VC Summit. So I'm keeping myself busy.
Awesome. Good stuff. It sounds like a lot going on. So Marc, thank you so much for coming on today and sharing your insights and tips with us. If people want to connect with you, what's the best way to get in touch with you or connect?
I've worked for a long time to do this, but you can certainly Google me if Google is still a thing. MARC, Nathan, Nathan. But the very best way is Linktree, LINKTREE/MARC1919. Linktree.com/Marc1919.
Nice. Good stuff. Well, thank you so much, Marc, for joining us today. Glad to have you. And I'm sure our listeners are going to just benefit from listening to this one. So thanks everyone for tuning in, and be sure to follow up and connect with Marc if you would like to touch base with him. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Flex Forward podcast. If you've got grit, growth, and a great story, visit flexforwardpodcast.com/guest to apply and join us on the show.